What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, live for your week 3 reaction, recap, and review. The Bottom Line week number 3 NFL review, where I sit here and I rant and I rave about what I saw from week number 3 in the NFL this weekend. We are going to discuss the best teams in the NFL right now. Are the Chiefs unstoppable in the AFC? What is going on with the NFC? We're going to rant about the Josh Allen haters out there, of course. And we're going to talk about a variety of topics. The Lions upsetting the Cardinals, the Atlanta Falcons, and trying to fix their team and their franchise in general, and a lot more. If you are interested in the extended cut of this show, The Bottom Line, the weekly NFL review, that can be found here on YouTube if you subscribe to The Bottom Line View. This is The Bottom Line, the weekly review, but an extended edition is on Patreon each and every Wednesday morning, Tuesday night, where I rant about other topics that I do not rant about in this show for those Patreon members that support the channel. So if you're interested in supporting me, supporting The Bottom Line View, and also getting some extra content, head over to Patreon and become a BLV patron. All right, before we get started on this week 3 NFL review, Gronk spike the like button and subscribe to The Bottom Line View if you haven't already for more NFL content. Each and every day, we have reviews, we have recaps, we have reactions each and every week. We have fantasy content, we have NFL picks, and much, much, much more. I cover each and every team. I like to think equally here on The Bottom Line View. I don't try to show any bias, at least as much as I can. Although it is Patriots-Chiefs week this week, so you might see a little bit more Patriot fandom this week. I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm just feeling it a little bit. You know, I'm shrugging the shoulders back. I think it's Patriot fandom week here on The Bottom Line View. So if I get a little bit irritating, it's because the Patriots have a big game this weekend. We'll get into that when we get to the picks tomorrow, which each and every week we have the picks on Wednesday nights. But this is the review of week 3. And before we get started at talking about those Chiefs, let's first talk about the top 10 teams of week number 3, brought to you by the Bottom Line View Instagram. The top 10 teams in the NFL voted on by Ultra, who is one of the patrons and also a contributor on the Bottom Line View Instagram. His top 10 teams for week number 3, or after week number 3, we should say. Number 1, the Kansas City Chiefs. Number 2, the Seattle Seahawks. Number 3, the Green Bay Packers. Number 4, the Buffalo Bills. Number 5, the Baltimore Ravens. Number 6, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Number 7, the New England Patriots. Number 8, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Number 9, the San Francisco 49ers. And number 10, the Tennessee Titans. So those are the top 10 teams according to Ultra. And when I look at this, I like this list. I think that is the top 5. Baltimore does find a way to stay within that top 5, even though they kind of got embarrassed last night on Monday Night Football. You know, they were supposed to take it to the Chiefs this time around, so we can't overreact to them losing to the Chiefs, because a lot of teams are going to lose to the Chiefs in the NFL. But the way they lost is important to note. The Buffalo Bills squeaked by the Rams. The Rams, I would argue, should be on this list, Ultra. I'd probably have them ahead of the 49ers in that NFC West right now, personally. The Tennessee Titans are undefeated. They did show some cracks in the armor this week, though. I think the Seahawks are pretty safely at number 2, just the way Russell Wilson is playing. I guess you could argue that the Packers could be number 2, the way Aaron Rodgers is playing. I do think a lot of people are going to continue to say, guys, that the Bucs don't belong there at number 6, but you're completely wrong, and we're going to get to why later on in the show when we talk about the NFC and the outlook and kind of the landscape of that conference. But I would say right now, the Bucs are the most complete team in that conference. Right now, after week 3, we're not even halfway through the season yet. The Bucs are probably the most complete team in the NFC. So to have them at number 6, I don't think is so crazy. Patriots right behind Tom Brady's team at number 7, which I think that's fine. I think some people have them near the top 5. They definitely have a challenge this week playing Kansas City, and we'll see how legit they can be. Even if they don't beat the Chiefs, I think just if they are able to go toe-to-toe with them and play a close game, I think that will indicate how good the Patriots can be come playoff time, come January, and how well they'll actually be able to compete versus the best teams in the biggest games. So that's the top 10 for this week via Ultra. And where you can find the top 10 every week is on the Bottom Line View Instagram. Bottom Line View Instagram, you'll get exclusive content on there, like the top 10, like fantasy starts and sits, like numerous other things. I know Durkant's coming out with a few things coming up, like some player matchups, some player profiles. By the way, happy birthday to Kevin Durkant out there, one of the biggest supporters of the Bottom Line View. He's turning the prime age of 15 years old, so happy birthday to Kevin Durkant. Yeah. There we go, DJ Horn for Kevin Durkant. So happy birthday to him. Wish a happy birthday to him in the chat. And yeah, big time supporter, patron of the channel, and also going to be contributing to the BLV Instagram. So that's the top 10. And make sure you do go follow the Instagram at The Bottom Line View for exclusive content each and every week. We're going to break down those top 10s from Ultra. Let's start off the first topic with the Kansas City Chiefs crushing the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, crushing. And I understand the score didn't really look like it, okay? But it was a disaster, all right, from the Baltimore Ravens perspective. If you do not get that kick return for Baltimore, what does this game look like? Really, without the kick return, without the special teams magic from John Harbaugh in this football team, this could have been a straight-out disaster of a football game. The Ravens were at home. I understand no fans, but they were at home. They were favored by 3.5 points. Most people, I think including the entire ESPN panel, picked Baltimore to win the game. And Kansas City won the game. Not just did they win the game, but they actually dismantled the Ravens. And this is kind of where I stand. Now, I don't think this was the Chiefs being amazing. I don't think this was the Chiefs being some unbeatable entity that we've never seen. I think this was more about where the Ravens actually stand within the NFL and within the NFL's elite, and looking at, okay, what is Baltimore when it comes to January? Remember, okay, this team went 14-2 last year. They were the number 1 seed in the AFC, but they lost in the first game that they played in that playoffs. Why? Well, the same things we saw in that game from January have yet to be addressed, have yet to be fixed. I don't really see the Ravens having fixed their issues, okay? Number 1 issue, they cannot play from behind. I have never seen this Lamar Jackson-led Baltimore Ravens team win in comeback fashion. And if you want to prove that you're a Super Bowl champion team to me, you need to be able to win comebacks. Because not every game, especially versus the best teams in any sport, in any league, but especially the NFL when it's only one game, it's not 7 games in a series, it's one game. You need to be able to overcome in the NFL to win the Super Bowl. And the Ravens have yet to prove to me that when they go down by 7, 14, 20, that they can come back and they can win the game. So that's problem number 1. And why is that a problem? So you kind of have like a web chart, all right? You got you got to look and see, okay, so they can't play from behind. Why is that? Okay, reason number one, their offensive line is extremely overrated. Extremely overrated. They are good when they're able to run the football at will. When they're able to just hand the ball off to their running back or utilize Lamar Jackson's legs, yes, they can definitely run you over in that facet of the game. But when they're asked to pass block in pure passing situations, numerous times last night, and this wasn't the 85 Bears that they were playing, this was the Kansas City Chiefs defense, which by all accounts is average. I mean, I won't call it bad. It's average. The Ravens' offensive line is not good pass protecting. And they're missing Marshall Yonda. They're missing some pieces. He retired, so he's not coming back. And Lamar Jackson was running for his life every time it was 3rd and long, and the Chiefs knew that the Ravens had to pass. On top of that, the Ravens do not have any weapons that scare a defense. Now, Marquise Brown is a fast receiver, but I've yet to see him take over a game in terms of just 10 receptions, 150 yards, and a touchdown. I've seen him have moments in his career thus far through 1 and a bit seasons here, and I think he's a solid NFL receiver. I think he's probably a top 40 receiver. But as long as you have a corner that has pretty good speed on the outside, it's not like he is going to completely dismantle your secondary or your passing defense. And then Mark Andrews just hasn't shown up. He didn't show up versus the Titans, and he didn't show up versus the Chiefs. And it seems like whenever you double team him or kind of... And this was the thing that I found very interesting about last night while I was commentating the game. The Chiefs were all over the Ravens' money concepts. And what I mean by money concepts is the go-to plays that they're all about. What is their bread and their butter? Mark Andrews down the seam. Mark Andrews over the middle of the field when they need a pass play. Not there. 2, 3 guys around him, hitting him as he's about to catch the ball. Their running game was actually not finding a lot of success because there was Chiefs swarming the football when they were attempting to do a lot of these run plays. And the number one thing versus the Ravens is, can you be successful as a defense on early downs? Can you force them into a long 3rd down, a long 2nd down, where they're having to, when it's a short 3rd down, the Ravens are unstoppable because they can run for those 3 yards or those 4 yards. They can pass for those 3 or 4 yards. And they have such creativity in their game plan and what they can do with Roman as the offensive coordinator that good night. But when it's 3rd and 8 plus, when it's 3rd and even 6 plus, I would argue the Ravens are kind of below average because of that offensive line and because of the lack of weapons on the outside to get open immediately for their quarterback. And then Lamar, to be quite fair, he's prone to miss a throw or two just because he's not the most accurate quarterback in the world. He's a good passer, but he's not a Mahomes. He's not a Wilson. He's not a Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees in his prime kind of guy. He's great because he can do things that nobody's ever seen in terms of running and in terms of making guys miss, in terms of extending the play. And he has got a great release and a good arm, but he's going to miss a throw or two per game in that situation. So the Ravens offensively showed a lot of their flaws, and I thought Spagnuolo and the Chiefs did a great job at kind of covering the areas and the schemes and the little tendencies that the Ravens offensively had, and the Chiefs were great at taking those key money concepts away. And then defensively, I really thought the Ravens looked lost. They looked on their toes. They looked off balance. They looked just completely like they did not know what to do out there versus this offense. Yes, Mahomes was great. Yes, Tyreek Hill played well. Those players that Clyde Edwards-Helaire played great. Andy Reid put on a show. He put on a showcase with his play calling, with his ability to attack this defense, but it just seemed like the Ravens were so conservative. And they really just let the Chiefs have whatever they wanted. It's not like they were taking away the deep ball. They really weren't. It's not like they were taking away the short. They weren't. I mean, Marcus Peters is playing cushion coverage 20 yards off the receiver. You can't, like, they're just going to throw a little short screen pass. Like, it just seemed like everything the Chiefs wanted to do, they were able to do. The Ravens were no resistance. They did not come with a great game plan. That's very rare. The Ravens rarely get outcoached. The reason they're so good and people were so high on them is not just because of Lamar, who's the MVP, and not just because of all these Pro Bowlers, but their coaching is top notch, and they got strictly outcoached last night. Outcoached by a mile, and that's what I saw defensively. I saw a defense that couldn't get to Mahomes when they needed to. Their blitzes, which are key to their scheme, were not working, not getting there. And their secondary is too slow to match up with the speed that the Chiefs offer at receiver. So maybe the Ravens are not quite as bad as I'm trying to bring up here, or maybe I'm just trying to bring up the flaws in this team. But the Chiefs, I just think, are an extremely bad matchup for this team now that we've seen it with this regime, with this Lamar, with this group of talent, this crop of players, and this roster, right? Like, you could say, okay, last year the Chiefs beat them, the year before that the Chiefs beat them, but they were close games. They were competitive games, and Lamar wasn't quite the Lamar we know now. But now seeing it on Monday night in the biggest game of the year that was billed to be the game of the year, and they come out and they lay an egg, this just shows that the Chiefs are totally a bad matchup for the Ravens. And this is not good, because the Ravens, if they want to get to the Super Bowl, that's where they want to go. They need to be able to beat the Chiefs. It's as simple as that. You're going to have to get extremely lucky to not play the Chiefs and hope some other team is able to knock them off in, the divisional round or maybe the wild card, depending on who gets the first seed. So I would be a lot more concerned after watching that game if I'm a Ravens fan. And I'm a lot more concerned about their prospect of potentially making the Super Bowl. And I am concerned about the flaws, because did the Chiefs lay out the game plan, the approach to take down this almighty Ravens team? So that was the game of the week. Some would argue the game of the year. It didn't live up to the hype, but I do think we found out a lot of stuff about both teams. I think we found out that the Chiefs are still very good when they want to be. And that's the thing with the Chiefs. When you're this championship team, when you're this team that's won the Super Bowl, and you're going to January, you're going to be in the playoffs, there's going to be games over the course of your schedule that you look at, and it's only human tendency. These guys are human beings, where you're going to look and you're going to see the Chargers on your schedule, and you're going to be like, you know what, we probably can, go 50% in this game. Let's put something together. Let's just squeak it out, move on to next week. We got the Ravens next week. Yeah, we're playing the Chargers. Justin Herbert's playing, okay. If you've ever been on a great team in your life playing a sport, you understand what that feeling is like. Okay, we got this team, or this school we're playing next week. They're easy. We're going to take care of that business. Maybe it's a little bit closer than traditionally it would be, but that's just human beings. It happens at all levels of sport. And I think that's what we saw through the first 2 weeks with the Chiefs. And then when they needed to turn it on, they turned it on. So just know that the Chiefs can turn it on when they need to. All right. Topic number 2. Josh Allen, baby. Josh Allen, where you at? Chiefs, or not Chiefs fans, Bills fans with the PFF shirts. Has anyone seen the PFF shirts from the Bills fans? That's gotta be one of the greatest things I've ever seen from a fan base in the existence of sports. I might buy one of these PFF shirts from these Bills fans. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just search up Bills PFF shirt or Josh Allen PFF shirt, and you'll find out what I'm talking about. Josh Allen. Why I said Josh Allen hypocrites. That's what it says on the screen. Why? Because now people are saying, okay, Josh Allen, he's playing the best he's ever played. Like, look at him go. He's improving. He's awesome now. Good job. He's exciting. But every time I hear somebody credit the Buffalo Bills, but specifically Josh Allen, whenever I see, hear, or read an acknowledgement of Josh Allen playing good football, it's followed with, but he did make this mistake, or, but he did miss this one throw out of 32 attempts, but he's only thrown for 300 yards 3 times, but he's only ran for this many yards. Like, you understand what I'm saying, right? It's always followed by, but. Josh Allen has been playing great, but can he do it next week versus this team? Josh Allen is making great throws right now, but can he beat the Patriots? Josh Allen is playing really well, but he's not as good as Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. Like, every single time Josh Allen is given credit, these people, these analysts, because they said Josh Allen sucked in the draft process, they will not give him credit for actually being good right now. Like, I understand I was always a Josh Allen guy. I said Josh Allen's going to be a baller. You know, all this stuff coming out of the draft. But at a certain point, I've been wrong about people. I've been wrong about teams. At a certain point, you have to admit when you are wrong. And these people, a large majority of this media, will not let go of the fact that they were wrong about the Buffalo Bills and they were wrong about Josh Allen. They will not let it go. And the way you can tell, look out for the word but. That is how you can tell. And Josh Allen is going to continue to rip up the AFC and the NFL. He's going to continue to put up these touchdowns, these big games, because the guy has raw talent that we rarely see in the quarterback position. And he's on a very good team, supported by very good players. And he's going to continue to roll. And people are going to continue to explain it by saying, but. Before we get to the next topic, I do want to give a couple shout outs in the chat. Guys, thanks for joining me here live for the Bottom Line week number 3 review recap. Shout out to Dose of Dion, who's in the chat. Shout out to Party, Durkant, Ultra, Turtle, Nicholas, Gill, all the guys in the chat. And Dose of Dion says, Bills Super Bowl sleeper. I picked them to go to the Super Bowl, which is pretty bold, but yeah, I could see it being them being a Super Bowl sleeper. I think they got all the talent. They got the coaching. I think the concern is the Chiefs, really. If they can get by the Chiefs, then they can do it. I need to see them, like, this is going to be hypocritical of me saying this, but I need to see them win a playoff game first, because last year they had all this potential, and I think them losing last year is going to help them this year have that playoff run this year. We're going to learn a lot about them, though. We're going to see them play New England twice. We're going to see them play Kansas City. So once we see that happen, like, we haven't seen them play a premier AFC team yet. So once they play those teams and I get a feeling for how they look versus those teams, I think I could officially say, ooh, the Bills are going to be a true contender. And maybe they do finish the season as the number 2 seed or the number 3 seed. New England is better than I thought they would be. I thought New England would be solid. I thought they'd be a playoff team, but I didn't think they would be as good as they look right now. So that is still a heavy battle and a fight in the AFC East as well. So let's get to this next topic, which is those Detroit Lions. So the Detroit Lions beat the Arizona Cardinals. The Lions, man, this was the upset of the week. I think a lot of people actually saw this one coming. At least a lot of smart people I recognize across the NFL media saw this one kind of coming. And I think it had a combination of the Cardinals being slightly overrated and the Lions being slightly underrated going into week 3, because the Lions, they lost that heartbreaker versus the Bears. And then week 2, they lost the Packers, who are kind of on fire right now, but they've had a lot of injuries. So that kind of added up into them losing when they probably shouldn't have lost, at least week 1. And honestly, this team, I'm a little disappointed, should be 2-1. If they were 2-1, they'd be right on stride with where I think they're going to go, or where I thought they would go. But now at 1-2, it's just going to make it a little bit more difficult. Tomorrow, you'll have to see if I pick them to beat the Saints, which I think is going to be a really entertaining game. Once again, for Detroit, I think the Saints are a lot more beatable than you would have thought before the season, because Drew Brees is not Drew Brees anymore. He just isn't. So that's going to be an interesting game, I think. But the Cardinals, the Lions, I think what we saw from the Lions this week, and I watched a lot of that game, is because I actually bet on it as well, so I had a little interest in it, aside from just cheering for the Lions this year in general. But the Lions, I saw offense looked about the same as it has all year. You know, they're going to run the football, they're going to use heavy play action, and Matthew Stafford's going to have to make some pinpoint, tight window throws to get them big plays down the field, or execute a 3rd and long occasionally for them to move the football. But Kenny Golladay was a big presence for them offensively, just having him on the field, whether that was a big catch that they needed on a 3rd down or in the red zone, or just to move the chains. But then the other thing with Kenny Golladay is it makes everybody else better, right? Because every other matchup then sees the trickle-down effect, which I think is something that always goes overlooked when somebody is out at 2 positions, specifically, receiver and corner. Whenever you lose your top receiver or your top corner, it has a trickle-down effect on those players having to play above their level, or above the depth chart, so to speak. So instead of Marvin Jones being the number 1, now he's the number 2. Instead of Amendola being the number 2, he's the number 3, and so on. Hawkinson can take more of a secondary role instead of a primary role. They don't have to rely on the running game as much as they did the first 2 weeks. So Kenny Golladay just being back gives them a legitimate number 1 option, who I think is a top 10 receiver. So, and he should get better, because he still looked maybe a tad slow or a tad not in football shape. So he should get better, but he did have a tough matchup. So offensively, they look about the same, and they've been effective with what they've been doing the last 2 seasons under Darrell Bevell. You know, running the football, play action, and as long as Stafford is on, which he usually is, they're able to score points. But the interesting part about their game, I thought, versus the Cardinals was their defense. I did see some statistics fly across Twitter talking about the zone man coverage difference between the 2 teams, or between, I should say, the same team, but the Lions were almost like a different team or a different defense in week number 3 than they were in week number 2 and week number 1. And Dion with the 199, thank you, man, I appreciate that. He says, spitting facts, players made plays. MP can do this. Yes, Matt Patricia. Don't fire Matt just yet. That's what he said versus the Cardinals on Sunday. Don't fire me just yet. I got something to say. That's what he was saying. But the defense, I saw some statistic where it was like they were playing like 70 or 80% man in the first 2 weeks, and they switched to like 50% zone or something, 55% zone, something. I don't know the exact numbers, but I did see his stat. And I do kind of wonder if that's Patricia going into the film study and saying, okay, we don't have Trufant out there. We don't really have the studs that we want to be able to play this much man coverage. If we dial that back, we maybe tune the slider up on the zone coverage, maybe the heavy zone where we think they're going to be, their money concepts, like I was talking about with the Chiefs, right, versus the Ravens. If we just put players, like this is what I like about Sean McDermott's defense. I'm typically a man coverage guy because I'm a Patriots fan. So that's just the way the Patriots run things, and that's the way I see it through the Belichick lens. So that's the way I see football most of the time. But when a team is, or a coach, I should say, is very good at scheming zones, because you can see it. You can see 2 or 3 guys around where the quarterback wants to throw the ball on every down. And that's kind of what I saw from Detroit versus the Cardinals. Like Sean McDermott, where it's like these 2 linebackers are just right on the guy as he's about to catch the football and they cause an incompletion or there's a batted down pass. And this actually caused more interceptions and more turnovers for Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray had his worst game of the season versus the Lions defense. He had the worst game I've seen him play in a while, and he made some really bad throws. Kyler Murray did not play well, so that maybe aided the Lions to winning the game as well. But I think that was partly because the Lions defense played good. And I saw them blitz a little bit more with a couple corners off the edge and stuff like that. I think that is the Eagle influence as well. Their defensive coordinator is a former Eagle coach. So there's a bit of Schwartz in there as well. But yeah, it was really interesting just from that perspective because I was watching the Lions defense. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like I haven't really seen them do that before. That was a change up. So hopefully that continues and that was why I was on Patricia last week. Like I came on here and I ranted about Matt Patricia and Dan Quinn. And the things I said about them was they don't adjust. Great coaches like Sean McVay. We were all on him this offseason for not adjusting his offense. He comes out this year and you see all this new stuff from him. And he evolved. He adjusted. He changed for the better. And what I saw with Matt Patricia in week 3 was exactly that. He was willing to say, maybe we should do this instead. This isn't working. We're 0-2. There's a reason that they came back and beat us in week 1 because we were trying to play too much man when we didn't have the guys out there that could play man. So in week 3, we're going to come out here with a completely different game plan. So that is the progress of Matt Patricia, I think, and seeing his evolution as a coach. And hopefully that continues because that is something that you need to learn as a head coach. When to take a step back and say, maybe I'm wrong here. Why am I wrong and how can we get better? And that is an important part about being a coach is not being stubborn and being able to learn from your mistakes. So that's what I saw in week 3. I think that's the biggest takeaway that you can see from week 3. And Desmond Trufant, when he does come back, which I think Dion just said he's back at practice, this means, hey, when he's back, maybe we can sprinkle in a little bit more man than we were playing in week 3. But I think they should be able to keep that same balance. And I did like some of that aggressive blitzing because it worked. I've been saying, Patricia, blitz. You gotta blitz, especially when your pass rush isn't good, okay? It's not. The Lions pass rush is bad. It's not Seahawks bad, but it's bad. So you gotta blitz at times. And you got to get after the quarterback and force mistakes. And I think there was one that I know in particular. I think it was the Harmon interception that was caused by a blitz and maybe even the Collins one as well. So maybe both of the two out of the 3 interceptions were caused by more rushers than the offensive line could block. So that's what I saw from the Lions. The Cardinals, I'm not too worried. I think they're still in contention for a wild card spot. They're just a very difficult offense to prepare for. Kyler's legs causes every team in the league problems. He's so dynamic in the open field. He made Jeffrey Okudah look like just a complete bum. Like, I don't even know. He was running a drill out there. What else? Their defense is still concerned. Like I said, the reason the Lions will win is because the Cardinals' defense is overrated. I think we kind of saw that on Sunday as well. And I'm still a little concerned about their defense, but looking at the Seahawks defense and the Cowboys defense and the Packers defense, like a lot of these NFC defenses are pretty bad. So I don't think they got to worry about that too much. Yeah, I'm not worried about the Cardinals. I think it was more a takeaway of what the Lions did well, more so than what the Cardinals did wrong, other than Kyler Murray not playing at his best. The Atlanta Falcons. I gotta take a sip here. Yo, Bills haters, this is for you right here. All right. Atlanta Falcons, fixing the Atlanta Falcons. This is for you, Ultra. You recommended it, and here it is. All right. I am sorry. This is not the way that I should lead this off. But the Matt Ryan era in Atlanta is over. I'm sorry, Ultra, but that's the case. I'm sorry, Atlanta fans, but I think that is the case. I think the Matt Ryan era is over. And it's not because Matt Ryan is bad. It's not because Matt Ryan stinks. I just think it's time to start over. It's time to click that reset button. It's time to rebuild in Atlanta, to me. Why? They have so many flaws. Outside of Matt Ryan and the receivers, they have so many flaws. The best way to quickly reset a team is to get rid of their high-paid quarterback. Start over with a cheap quarterback, whether that's a rookie that you draft in the top 10 this year, a free agent that you can find. You have to probably move on from him because it's very difficult to rebuild when you're paying a quarterback this much money. And that is not just Matt Ryan. That's a lot of different quarterbacks in the league. A lot of teams are unable to rebuild because they're paying their quarterback so much money to the point where are you going to spend your money? Where are you going to put those assets? The offensive line is still pretty bad. They've tried to address it. It hasn't necessarily worked. And that's the thing, right, with Atlanta and with a lot of teams. Like, going back to the Bills again, I think the reason why the Bills were able to rebuild was because Bean was so good at not just identifying the problem on the team, whether that was offensive line, quarterback, receiver, defensive line, whatever it was. But the key to being a good GM is not only identifying the problem. I feel anybody can identify the problem. It's addressing the problem and actually reaching the objective. And what I mean by reaching the objective is putting assets toward the problem and actually fixing the problem. Like, again, anybody can identify the problem, but can you actually fix the problem? And that's what we've seen with the Bills. They knew their offensive line was a problem. They fixed it. They knew they needed a new quarterback. They fixed it. They needed defensive players. They fixed it, right? Atlanta has identified problems. Our pass rush isn't very good. Okay, let's sign Dante Fowler. Our offensive line isn't very good. Let's draft 2 guys in the first round. But they haven't fixed the problem. They've had these problems, but they didn't fix it. The secondary. They draft 2 guys with really high picks. One in the first round who actually looks like a pretty good player. And they drafted Isaiah Oliver, I think, in the second round. They've spent money, but they haven't fixed the problem. I think it's time for a full-scale reboot. Get rid of the general manager, even though I love him. Get rid of the quarterback, even though he's one of the greatest players in franchise history. Get rid of those guys. Get rid of the coach, first and foremost. Quinn is the biggest problem. And we addressed that last week. The guy has failed to adjust, failed to change, does not bring anything of note, and his message is lost on these players. Bring in a more creative, younger, innovative mind, and make sure that you bring him and the GM in at the same time, because the GM and the coach need to have the same idea of what this football team is going to be. That's another thing we've seen in Buffalo. I think Buffalo is a great example. They have a GM who addressed what type of football they want to play, and the coach has been able to deliver the culture. You need a coach that's going to deliver the culture and a GM that's going to assemble a great team. And to me, Atlanta needs to start with firing their coach. They need to double that up with getting rid of their GM. And then third, probably move on from Matt Ryan. That is not a certainty because I don't think he is the problem necessarily, but he is getting older. And within these next 3 years, I would say, at the very least, he is going to significantly decline. So it might even be better for him to not go through a rebuilding process, allow him to leave, and go somewhere where he actually has a chance to win. So then you can rebuild, getting rid of that contract, getting a new quarterback, and starting fresh. Now, there are pieces on this team that I think can be utilized in the future. Grady Jarrett being one of them. Deion Jones being another. Julio is going to be there for life. Calvin Ridley looks like a stud. But outside of that, this team really struggles running the football. They need to get a new identity in that regard. They need to completely rebuild this offensive line. Alex Mack is getting near retirement. Matthews is only getting older. I mean, they got some young guys there that haven't necessarily lived up to the billing. And then defensively, their secondary is complete and utter trash. I don't know how much of that is talent and how much of that is scheme. I want to say it's more talent than scheme, but they need a full schematic reboot. It's just everything, man. Like, Atlanta has almost everything wrong with this football team. It's pretty crazy. They can pass the football. Can't stop you from passing it. I mean, it's bad. I feel bad for Atlanta fans. And I think a big problem is teams giving up these leads like Atlanta. Part of it is coaching, but I think the second is that they cannot run the football. When you cannot run the football, guys, just think of it logically. Just think of it logically right now. If you cannot run the ball in the NFL in the fourth quarter, how are you milking the clock? You're having to pass. When you're having to pass, there's a higher chance you're going to incomplete pass, right? Incomplete passes means stop the clock. Stop the clock means you're extending the game. So because you cannot run the ball when you need to run the ball, I'm not saying running the ball is essential to winning because I don't think it is. But when you need to run the ball, third and short, in the red zone, and at the end of the game, that is how you win. Pass to get the lead, run to maintain the lead. The Atlanta Falcons can pass to get the lead, but they cannot run to maintain the lead. They run to maintain the lead, they get stuffed, or they pass and it's incomplete, more time in the game, other team gets the ball, and guess what? They can't defend the pass. So you can't run the ball, you can't defend the pass. So now a team that is behind Atlanta is having to pass constantly, which, is Atlanta's biggest flaw. So this is why Atlanta continuously is giving up leads. Because of this combination. They're great at the beginning because a lot of teams in this league are too dumb to realize that you have to pass to get the lead. So when these teams like the Bears and these teams like Dallas realized, we're down by 20. We got to start passing on every play. Then they start shredding this defense. Because they're like, the secondary's terrible. And they just pass it. That's the thing I don't understand about a lot of these NFL teams. When you play Atlanta, don't run. Just pass every play. And you're probably going to win. Like, this is the thing about the side rant. Thing about the Cowboys that annoys me. Our EPA per play, our expected points added, is through the roof when Dak throws the ball. But we wait until the third quarter to start passing the ball heavily in our game plan. Instead, we're just going to run Zeke. Run Zeke the whole game. Like, it amazes me because being a Patriot fan, you know, there's this thing where Bill Belichick's going to do whatever it takes to win. Right? So Bill Belichick would literally play the Baltimore Ravens in the playoffs and throw the football 65 times so that they would win because they knew they would not gain any yards running the ball. And coaches watch this and they do not adjust. They say, we can't do that. We're going to do what we do. Or we're going to run every play because they can't stop the run. Like, some of these things are so simplistic, but that's the case versus Atlanta. Like, you wonder why Atlanta gets these leads? Is because the teams that allow them to get these leads are stupid. That's why. All right. Let's talk about the AFC and the NFC, guys. Comments at the end. At the very end. Guys, if you're enjoying these rants, Gronk, spike that like button and subscribe to the Bottom Line View for the weekly reaction to NFL action. Also, get in that comment section, whether you're live, you're watching this after the fact. Comment your opinion on the NFL right now, what you see out there on Sundays, and I'll make sure I get back to you. All right. AFC is better than the NFC, and it's not even close. As I said earlier, the NFC is completely flawed. Completely flawed. If you are a fan of an NFC team, you are sitting pretty. Why? Because you do not have to be a great team in 2020 to do well in the NFC this year. You can get by being good or by being good on one side of the ball, by being really good in one area. The AFC has the Super Bowl champion Chiefs, who just dismantled the Ravens, who the Ravens have dismantled seemingly everybody else and will dismantle the Washington football team this weekend. They have the best coach in the league, Bill Belichick, with this Patriots team that's one of the more balanced in the league, defensively, offensively, running the football better than anyone in the league. The Bills are one of the more balanced teams in the league. You got the Steelers with arguably the best defense in the NFL with a Super Bowl champion quarterback and head coach. And then you got kind of sneaky teams that just about beat any bad team, like the Titans or the Browns. These teams that look like they can beat any bad team, but maybe don't beat any good team. Like, the AFC is actually quite talented. We saw the Raiders beat the Saints on Monday night. Pretty easily, too. Pretty easily. And it would be an even more competent conference if there weren't some injuries, to teams like the Chargers or the Broncos. Even teams like the Dolphins are feisty. Jacksonville is feisty. The Jets are terrible. Okay, the Jets are terrible. We just saw the Bengals, maybe the worst team in the entire conference, tie the Eagles. Houston is 0-3. Why? Deshaun Watson, one of the 5, 6, maybe 7 best quarterbacks in the league, is 0-3. Why? Because he played the Chiefs, Steelers, and Ravens. 3 of the best teams in the AFC. Right? The Colts are 2-1. Very well coached. Veteran quarterback. So when I look at the AFC, there's so many teams in contention. In the NFC, you got Russell Wilson, and the Seahawks, who's great quarterback, great player, great offense, very difficult to stop. Their defense has allowed the most passing yards in the first 3 weeks of an NFL season ever. More than the 2011 Patriots, who are okay? The Packers. Aaron Rodgers playing out of his mind. Our expectations for the Packers before the season weren't very high because we didn't think that with just a good Aaron Rodgers, this team couldn't be this good. But now that Aaron Rodgers is MVP level again, they look like a force in the NFC because they got this Aaron Rodgers, but they're still extremely flawed, especially on defense. They're giving up a lot of points. The Saints look way worse than we expected. The Niners are beat up without Nick Bosa. Who else do you even bring up? The Cowboys are leading the NFC East and they're 1-2. The Washington football team is tied for first. They're 1-2. The Washington football team. The Bears are undefeated, guys. The Bears. We just discussed Atlanta sucks. Carolina's pretty bad. Tampa's good. But the AFC is superior, man. They have much more well-rounded teams. They have better coaching. And they are the teams. Like, I went over it last week. A lot of people were like, Mitch, why did you not talk about the locks in the NFC? Because I didn't know. I had no idea. I talked about the locks in the AFC last week because they were obvious. They were out there. Because the AFC, we know what these teams are. We can tangibly see with our two eyes and feel that the AFC, these teams are good and they're going to be good. With the NFC, it's like rather wait and see, or maybe they slip up, or maybe they're not quite as good as their record, or can this guy continue to carry this team? Like, there's a lot of that in the NFC. So if you're kind of one of those middling teams in the NFC that you don't know if they're going to be good, maybe they're kind of okay right now, I wouldn't rule yourself out just yet because a couple injuries here and there, a couple slips in the schedule, a couple easy roads in the schedule. It's looking promising. So let's talk about that NFC. So you wanted it. Here it is. The NFC Playoff Outlook. Get the lock out. Get the key out. All right? Lock. Throw away the key. All right, we ready? We ready for this? NFC time. These are the teams in the NFC that will be in the playoffs come January. The Seattle Seahawks. You are in the playoffs. Congratulations. Key, lock, throw the key out. Seattle has already earned a playoff spot. Russell Wilson, to me, Patrick Mahomes, no Patrick Mahomes, is the best player in the NFL at this moment in time. Pete Carroll is a championship head coach. They got DK Metcalf, who I've said for a couple weeks now, he might be the best receiver in the NFL. Just maybe. Tyler Lockett's amazing. They can run the football. Their defense is flawed, but the way Wilson is playing, carrying this team at an MVP level, the most touchdowns thrown through 3 weeks in NFL history, forget about it. Lock, throw it out. Number 2 team, the Green Bay Packers. You are in the playoffs. I doubted you, Aaron Rodgers. I am sorry. I will not do it again. The Packers will be in the playoffs. Why? Because I think Aaron Rodgers has turned the corner. I think he is back. I think, Aaron Rodgers, the bad man, is back. So, if Aaron Rodgers is back, They got arguably the best offensive line in football right now from a pass protection standpoint. Devontae Adams is one of the best receivers in the NFL. They can run the football with Aaron Jones, keeping defenses off balance. Matt LaFleur has added bits and pieces of creativity to this offense. And the defense, they can rush the passer and they can cover. Yes, their weakness is defending the run, but that is on the lowest of the low on the totem poles of worries in the NFL in 2020. The Packers are an NFC contender because of MVP Aaron Rodgers being back. The bad man is back. Lock, throw away the key. Packers, congratulations. The number 3 team that is officially in the playoffs. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Key, lock, throw it out the window. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be playing in January. Why? I don't know if you know this. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have the best defense in the NFC. Yeah, they do. They got the number 1 run defense. They have the best tandem at linebacker in the NFL. They have Shaq Barrett and JPP on the edge, Vita Vea and Ndamukong Suh in the middle, Antoine Winfield Jr., my favorite safety in the draft, and my favorite defensive prospect, to be honest, is on Defensive Rookie of the Year pace. Carlton Davis, legitimate number 1 corner. That defense is the best in the NFC. The offense is continuing to get a little bit better each and every week. Tom Brady still got it. Tom Brady can still zip it. He can still throw it. He can still place the football where he wants to. This offensive line, especially pass protection wise, is pretty good. You got Mike Evans, you got Chris Godwin, you got Scotty Miller, Gronk coming on versus the Broncos, Fournette and Jones in the backfield. This team is the most complete team in the NFC to me. They are in the playoffs. Lock, key, throw it out the window. That's the 3rd team. 4th team, Dallas Cowboys. Yes, you're 1 and 2. Cowboys are in the playoffs. Why? Because the NFC East is quite possibly the worst division I've ever seen in my life. This division in 2020 is trash. It is terrible. The Eagles are booty. Washington does not have an offense. And the Giants are the Giants. By default, the Cowboys are in the playoffs. They have the best quarterback by a pretty wide margin in this division right now. They have the best offensive line. They have the best rushing attack. They have the best group of receivers. They have not a great defense, but they can get after you on the defensive line. Aldon Smith's leading the NFL in sacks. What a story he's been. The NFC least is the reason I will lock and throw away the key out the window. Cowboys, you're in the playoffs. Congratulations. We got 3 spots left. Those are the 4 teams I think are in the playoffs in the NFC that I'll say, a matter of fact, they have already made it. Now, there's 4 other teams that I think could make it. 5 other teams for 3 spots. I will not yet count out the New Orleans Saints. The Saints still have Drew Brees and still have Sean Payton. And I do think this defense is better than the way they've played. The LA Rams have impressed me. I almost made them a lock and key team, but not quite yet. They should have beat Buffalo on Sunday. They kind of got screwed over by the refs. They still got Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey on defense, utter studs. And offensively, their offensive line's playing better. Jared Goff's playing well. They can run the ball. They can pass the ball. They got a shot. The Cardinals in the NFC West as well. They got a shot because Kyler Murray, with what he can do with his legs, Cliff Kingsbury, DeAndre Hopkins, and the defense has had its moments. It's had its ups. It's had its downs. But they can compete with anybody because of Kyler's play style. So those teams, and then you got the San Francisco 49ers as well in the NFC West. 3 other teams in the NFC West. The entire NFC West has a chance to make the playoffs this year. The 49ers I will not count out because of Kyle Shanahan and what we saw from him versus the Giants. Maybe the most underappreciated story of week 3 was Kyle Shanahan taking a varsity football team and beating the Giants by 30 points. Wizard. I will not count out Kyle Shanahan, the wizard. You are a wizard, Harry. What else we got here? The Chicago Bears are 3-0. Chicago Bears are 3-0, so you cannot dismiss them. They got a shot. Now, they've played 3 teams that could qualify to play in Canada, but they are still 3-0. So you have to give them credit. I want to see how the Nick Foles things goes. I want to see how that goes. I want to see if that improves their offense, if that makes their offense a little bit more consistent. I'm not sold yet, but they got a shot. I won't count them out. They got a solid defense. I think Nagy's done a good job thus far. I think Montgomery looks better. So the Bears got a shot. I'm not going to say they don't. And the last team that has a chance to make the playoffs, the Detroit Lions. I'm not counting them out. Why? Look at their schedule after they play the Saints. Look at their schedule. Quite honestly, I'm going to take a look right now. I'm going to pull up my phone. I don't even know off the top of my head, but I do know from my memory that it is pretty if you're the Lions. So they're 1-2. They should be 2-1. So they coughed one up. But I'm not counting them out. Why? I think they can beat the Saints. This game's at home. It's not in New Orleans, by the way. So they got a chance there. And that's a huge game. Whoever wins that game, I think, probably makes the playoffs. If the Lions beat the Saints beat the Lions, that team's probably going to make the wild card spot. But week 5, bye week. All right? Look at this stretch of games and tell me one of these games that the Lions cannot win. They play Jacksonville after the bye. So they have a full week to prepare for Jacksonville in Jacksonville. They then play Atlanta, the worst defense in the NFL. Then they play the Colts at home. Then they play the Vikings, who are awful. Then they play the football team. Then they play the Panthers. Then they play the Texans, who are 0-3. Then they play the Bears again, who they should have beat the first time. Then they play the Packers. Okay, tough game. Then they play the Titans. Tough, but not unwinnable. Then they play the Bucks at home. And then they finish with the Vikings. So realistically, they could lose probably at the most 4 or 5 more games. If they lose 5 more games, that would make them 9-7. If they lose 4, that would make them 10-6. If they lose 6, that would make them 8-8. So if they do way worse than I expect, I think they'll go, they've played 3 games so far. They got 13 more to go. I think they can only lose 5 or 6 there. I think they got a shot. So to me, they beat the Cardinals. That was huge for the Lions. So they still got hope, in my opinion. There it is, guys. Week number 3 review. The bottom line. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, Gronk, spike that like button and subscribe to The Bottom Line View for more NFL. Now let's get to the comments. and let's see what people are saying. All right. What's up, guys? What's up? Guys, if you aren't already, do follow the Bottom Line View on Instagram. I'll leave it up there for you so you guys can go give it a follow. Any questions? Let me know. I'll be here. Michael says Lions have a chance for the 7 seed. They could beat the Saints and match up pretty well against the Packers. This isn't saying that they will do anything in the playoffs, though. They aren't there yet. Ultra says, if I get a prediction right, it's just Ultra copies Durkant / Mitch. Mark says the difference between the Browns and the Lions is that the Lions have opportunities to be good and they never take over. Here's the thing, too. The Lions have a way better quarterback right now. Rob says Saints may need to think about Jameis Winston if the Saints season is in danger of falling off the rails. Connor says, I had to save that pic of you holding the mug. Could you send it to the Discord, please, or send it to me in a DM? Thank you, Connor. Appreciate that. Party says, you copy them, Ultra. Party, I saw your tennis record. What's up with that, bro? What's up with that, Party? Come on, bro. Get better. Yes, I need that clip. I need that clip. I need these clips. If you guys could make clips or like GIFs, that would be awesome. Just little video clips I can post on Instagram. Lions could sweep the Vikings, says Durkant. I could see that. Vikings are terrible. Mark says the Niners are going to get healthy and are going to be dangerous in the playoffs. I could see that. Depends on how Jimmy plays. Brian says, as a Bears fan, Green Bay wins the division, but Chicago will make the wild card with our revamped offense rejuvenating our defense. Fair enough. We'll have to see how they do these next couple weeks. They got the Colts. I think they play the Bucks, so those are challenging games. Ramifications says NFC West should be its own conference. It's GIF, not GIF, bro. Mark says, hey, Mitch, I can make some GIFs for you. Thank you. I would appreciate that. William says, NFC West could very well sweep the NFC wild card. Yeah, maybe. But I don't think like the third team in the NFC West is going to get by like the Bucks. I don't even know if they could get by the Cowboys, to be honest. Like, I know the Cowboys are 1-2, but they could easily be 2-1. They could easily be 0-3. They could easily be 3-0. They've played every game has been close and tight. Spunky says, who would you put your money on right now to make it all the way? Wow. I want to say the Bucks, but I really haven't seen enough yet. Right now, if I had to put money on it, I'm leaning saying the Packers, but I don't know, man. I think it's between those three teams. I think it's between the Bucks, Packers, and Seahawks. I think the Bucks are the most well-rounded. I think the Packers are more well-rounded than the Seahawks, but I think the Seahawks have more of that spunky kind of like any game they could win type of thing to them. And I do think that Seahawks defense has to get better just by a matter of odds. So, good question, though. Golden Rooster said the Bucks literally lost the Saints. Yeah. The key word there is they lost to the Saints. The Saints did not beat the Bucs. But I think we all knew that first week the Bucs weren't going to be at their best at all. They've already improved since then. Michael says, Montana boy here. Stafford is a stud. Just seems like no one outside of Detroit is aware of that. The guy is so good, needs help from the team to be great. Not his fault. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say nothing is his fault because that's not fair for anyone to say that about any player because every player makes mistakes. But yeah, he's played for Detroit. I mean, I retweeted it. I quote tweeted it on Twitter. I was just like, this guy's been carrying this franchise since 2009. He has the most comebacks since he entered the NFL, and yet nobody gives him credit at all. Opium says, Mitch, who's not making the playoffs in the NFC West? They could all make it. If I had to say nobody or one team doesn't make it, I think I'm still going to say Arizona. I'm not quite there yet with them because of the volatility with their offense. And because I do think their defense is slightly overrated, I still think the 49ers are a better overall team. But that could easily change. I think the Rams are number 2, though. Durkant said he'd bet $5,000 on one of the Bills or the Bucs making the Super Bowl. Ken says, have you done your spread picks the week yet or have a video out yet? No, I do that every Wednesday live. Saints are 1-2. Drew Brees is done. That's munching on you. Michael says Russell Wilson is such a tremendous role model and off the field. Check out the GQ Sports. Yes, Russell Wilson seems like a great guy. Mark says Tom Brady's the luckiest athlete of all time. Yeah, I've never seen Breeze this year throw over 20 yards that wasn't wide open. Happy birthday to Durkant, yes. Seattle's defense could be their downfall, but it could be the downfall of Green Bay. It could be the downfall of a lot of these teams. Even the Chiefs, it could be the downfall of them. Think the Steelers make the playoffs? I do. All right. I think we're going to end it there. Thanks, guys, for joining me tonight. Hope you enjoyed. Again, guys, Gronk spike that like button and subscribe to the Bottom Line View. Make sure you do follow the Instagram. It's Mitch. Tomorrow, week 4, NFL picks live on the channel. Peace.